Welcome to Storyteller's Corner, the podcast where every episode is a new adventure. Some stories will make you laugh, some will send chills down your spine, and others will make you question everything. But one thing's for sure, you won't want to miss what's next. The house my grandparents built when I was 5 years old. My parents left me at my grandparents' house for the weekend. They never came back. At the time, I didn't understand why. I just knew that my mom and dad had promised to pick me up on Sunday, and then they didn't. Grandpa Joe and Grandma Linda tried to soften the truth, telling me they were just going through some things. But as I got older, I learned the real story. My parents were junkies, deep in addiction, running from debt, and barely surviving. I wasn't their son. I was just another responsibility they weren't willing to handle. My grandparents, on the other hand, were everything parents should be. They raised me as their own, teaching me how to ride a bike, how to cook Sunday breakfast, and how to be a decent person. Grandpa was a retired carpenter, always working on some project in the garage, and Grandma made the best apple pie in the state. Their house wasn't just a building. It was a place full of love, memories, and second chances. Then, when I was 25, everything changed. The tragedy, it happened late on a Friday night. My grandparents had gone out for dinner like they always did at the end of the week. They never made it home. A drunk driver, speeding through a red light, hit them head-on. I got the call around midnight. By the time I arrived at the hospital, it was too late. The grief was unbearable. These were the only real parents I had ever known, and just like that, they were gone. The funeral was a blur, flowers, condolences, a sermon that felt too short for the lives they had lived. But at least I had one thing left, the home they built. My grandparents had always been meticulous about their estate. They had updated their will regularly, and before passing, they had made one thing crystal clear: everything was left to me. The house, their savings, their belongings, it was all mine. At least, that's what I thought. The unwanted visitors. A week after the funeral, I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, I saw two people I hadn't seen in years. My parents. "Oh, honey, we came as soon as we heard," my mother gushed, stepping forward like she was about to embrace me. I took a step back, blocking the doorway. My father gave me a sad shake of the head. "It's just awful, son. I know we haven't been around, but we're still family. And family sticks together, right?" I should have slammed the door in their faces. But part of me was curious, what was their angle? I didn't have to wait long. "Listen, we were talking, and we realized it wouldn't be fair for you to keep the house all to yourself," my mother said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "We're your parents. We should be able to live here too. Maybe we sell it and split the money." There it was. The real reason they came. They didn't want to reconnect. They wanted the house. I laughed, actually laughed right in their faces. "You abandoned me when I was 5. My grandparents raised me. This house is mine." The kindness drained from their expressions instantly. "That's not your decision to make, son," my father snapped. "Legally, we're your next of kin. We have a right to this property too." And just like that, they lawyered up. The legal battle. A few weeks later, I was served legal papers. My parents were contesting the will. Their argument? As my grandparents' biological child, my father was entitled to half of their assets. My mother, of course, was right beside him, demanding her fair share too. I wasn't worried. My grandparents weren't stupid. They knew exactly who they had raised and exactly who they had abandoned. When we got to court, their lawyer tried to paint them as loving, grieving parents who only wanted to share in the family home. My lawyer, on the other hand, presented the facts. My parents had abandoned me. There were official records proving that my grandparents had taken full legal custody when I was 5. My grandparents had left a clear, uncontested will. They had specifically planned for this situation, because tucked away in the will was one brilliant clause. In the event that our son or his spouse attempts to contest this will, they shall be entitled to one thing from this estate, a single dollar. That's it. That was their inheritance. I followed the will to the letter. I gave them their dollar. The aftermath, the judge ruled in my favor, dismissing their case entirely. They walked away with exactly what they deserved, one crisp $1. But I wasn't done. I had the dollar framed and mailed it to them with a note. Don't spend it all at once. I never heard from them again. And as I stood in my house, looking around at the home my grandparents built, I knew one thing for certain. They had protected me in life. And even in death, they had made sure I was safe. That's it for today's episode of Storyteller's Corner. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to follow the podcast and share it with someone who loves a good tale. Got a story idea or something wild that happened to you? Send it my way. I just might tell it in a future episode. Until next time, keep your eyes open, because the best stories are happening all around us.